Hello, everyone. We're live here. This is FPL Kante. I'm here with my buddies, FPL Wrangler and ZD. We are back after some time. I was just checking our old videos. I think the last time we were live was back in Game Week 13 last season. So that was all before the World Cup and everything. Of course, we were all three of us got busy with work and life, and we couldn't manage schedule to do this. But hopefully we'll be back full on this season. How are you doing, guys? Wrangler, how are you doing?
Doing very good. Very excited that we are back after a long pause.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, right, it was kind of very difficult to maintain, kind of work life as well as personal life, everything cope
Mm-hmm.
up with this. But we just hope that it's gonna be a little bit more easier for us or convenient for us to move forward. And again, FPL is back, so definitely very much excited and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. How are you doing, DZT?
Nice to be back after a long time and pretty excited. The new season is just starting pretty soon, I think in 3 weeks, right? So it is going to be back in exciting times.
Mm-hmm. Talk about your last season. You finished within top 1K. How did that feel? How did that end? Game of 38.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good. I think most of the time I was like, how to go more and more, like enter because I broke my best record. But I think it was 30, it was like kind of pretty
Mm-hmm.
relaxing because I was well inside 1K. But
Mm-hmm.
initially, you guys know that my target was inside to be 10K.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty good.
You are a little choppy, ZD.
Because the second half it went unbelievable. The plan, like whatever all, but did not
Mm-hmm.
matter that.
Yeah, yeah, better. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it was very good actually. Yeah, it was very good because first time finishing in side 1K.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, I mean, I would take it any day. So
Yeah.
it was great to be in the 1K.
Nice, nice. Congratulations, and hopefully we'll be able to repeat that, maybe even do better, right? This season, hopefully. Wrangler, you
Yeah,
yourself also had a good season. How was your overall season last year?
It was pretty good. I'm even season before the last season, I was also very close to top 10K. In last 10 or 15 game weeks, but at the end, I kind of slipped away. So this time also it was the same situation. Like I mean, from game week 30 or 31, I was very close to between 20 and 10K. I was not getting able to break the barrier. But the last game week, it was kind of got lucky in a
Mm-hmm.
sense that Holland didn't start, and then we brought Kane and captain. So it was kind of also calculated as well because like Leeds needed to win, and we just thought uh,
Yeah,
can give it a shout. So it worked pretty well and finished first time top 10K as well as top 5K. So I finished in 3.9K. So it was pretty good. The feeling was awesome.
nice,
How about
nice.
yours? I know that your one also went pretty well. So how about you?
Yeah, I slipped away maybe in between game week 32 and 36, 37 a little bit, but 38 was I got somewhat lucky with the AK points, etc. And as you said, like Ken captaincy and so on, everything worked out. A lot of people went for Salah captaincy that didn't quite work out, or people were reluctant to sell Haaland at the last minute, and etc. So yeah, overall it worked out well. Finished within top 10K, I think around 5.6K or something like that. So yeah, it was definitely a good feeling. I was really proud that all three of us finished top three in the APL USA Elite League. That was a good moment. That was a very proud moment. I was really, really happy to just look at that, right, while it was on live FPL or in other apps. So it was really good to look at that. We three took the top three places on the APL USA Elite League. So yeah, overall, I think it went really good for us, even though we couldn't continue the videos, but I think at least individual season wise, it went well for all three of us, one way or another. But we'll see. Looking forward to another good season, hopefully a more regular season in comparison to the last three. COVID, hopefully no royalty dying, etc. So we'll hopefully have a regular-ish season at least this time around. So we'll see how that goes. So anyway, so let's get into the data. We have a few people in the chat already with us, Abdullah and Patrick. Thanks for joining us. Especially I have to uh, say that FPL USA has been a big backer for us. Even when we were off, they were always encouraging us to come back. If not, I don't think we would probably have the enthusiasm to come back again. So thanks to especially all the FPL USA friends that we have here. So with that being said, so let's get into that, our video today. So our today's video is mostly going to be talking about last season's data and the implication of all that in for this season. We are not going to get too deep into team specific discussion. We'll hopefully in the next 3 weeks or so we'll have multiple videos where we'll talk about more in-depth teams and so on, especially the key teams. We'll try to target that. And of course, before game week one, we'll also have a regular game week one preview with some drafts and etc. So that's basically our plan for the next 3 weeks or so. But for this week, it's mostly data oriented, coming up from 23, 24. We'll look at some team data, we'll look at the goalkeeper, defenders, and attacker data as well. And at the end, we'll talk about the fixtures a little bit too, what the wildcard opportunities are. Of course, the wildcard situation this year is a little different from last year because we had a World Cup, so we had all of us had an extra wildcard, which is not the case this time. So there is a little more to strategize this year with the wildcard, how and when you want to use the wildcard. So we'll talk about that at the end a little bit as well, and hopefully we'll touch more on that in our next videos too. So with that being said, let's first look at some team data. I mean, of course, Man City and Arsenal, the two best teams in the league last season. And as expected, they overperform. Good teams always tend to do that. They score more goals than they get chances. Of course, they do create a lot of chances as well, but they finish. They have good finishers, so they tend to have better goal over XG ratio as well in comparison to other teams. Liverpool, I mean, all through the last season, we were mostly saying that they are not as much as in good form. But even so, they did put pretty good numbers, at least in average throughout the season, close to Arsenal's actually. Brighton, Newcastle, all together, kind of, they're kind of in the similar-ish zone from an underlying data standpoint. Manchester United is interesting because they did look like a good team for most part of the season last year, but also there were some finishing issues, especially Weghorst playing number 9 for most of the season. And Wrangler, you know better than me on that. They did miss a lot of opportunities, right? You were as a Bruno owner. Every week I was hearing from you like, hey, he could have had like a 15 pointer. He got nothing because other people are not finishing the chances, right? So of course there is a good chance that Manu buys a good forward this season. So I do expect Manu's numbers to get better, somewhere in the range of the other, like the top 5 teams. So hopefully their numbers would get better and would be more invested in their FPL assets, and they're very nicely priced as well, right? So when we'll talk about the attackers, we'll talk about it a little more. And another interesting team is Tottenham. Again, I mean, all through the season that was kind of evident. Even when Tottenham were not creating chances, Kane was in one way or another scoring goals, right? All through the season, he barely missed any games where he didn't score, right? So that was evident all through the season. So they did overperform, and they always overperform, right? Tottenham is one of those teams who plays mostly based on counter attack. At least the last few coaches or managers did play in that way. Postecoglou might be different. We'll see in the coming days. They had a friendly earlier today against West Ham. They had like 72% possession. So that's already a sign of how things could be different under the new manager. But in general, because Tottenham have very good finishers in Kane and Son, uh, they tend to overperform all the time, right? So that's one of the things that you probably shouldn't take out of context. That even if they overperform, that's kind of continuous thing. They always do that. So that's there. I don't think there is a lot to talk about the other teams. Chelsea, maybe we'll talk a little more when we talk about the teams specifically later on in one of our videos. But yeah, Chelsea do need to improve a whole lot. Of course, we have a new coach, Pochettino, so hopefully the underlying should improve. Hopefully, with the new purchases, our returns should improve as well. But yeah, that's about it. So I mean, the good teams we still expect to be good this year: City, Arsenal, Brighton, Newcastle. We expect some improvement from Liverpool, Man United, probably Tottenham and Chelsea. So basically, and Brentford to some extent as well, right? So these are kind of the teams, 8 teams, I would say, so 7 or 8 teams that we would target mostly for our attacking assets, right? Anything specific to add, Wrangler or ZD, from a team standpoint? What are you expecting from these teams in general this season?
You covered it pretty well, especially like the Spurs and Man United section, that underperformance and overperformance. I'd like to add the team that you mentioned. I'd like to add Aston Villa as well in that list.
Mhm, mhm.
So they had good signing, and they look pretty well as well, under Emery. So that's another team also.
Yep.
I look forward to see, and they have a good phase. When when we'll see Legoman as like hop off chart,
Mhm,
we will discuss about that. So Aston Villa is another team I'm really looking forward, and West Ham as well. We'll see. West
mhm,
Ham in last season, it was kind of shaky, but at least at the end they were able to avoid the relegation. But
mhm.
this season, we'll see, because there are some interesting teams.
Yeah.
Let's say so. West Ham could be one. We'll see.
Yeah, Villa is interesting, of course, and they bought some good players in this transfer window as well, right? So they are strengthening. They already look pretty good in the second half of the season, and I think they will be better. If anything, this at least we expect to they got good defenders, good midfielders, all around. So we do expect them to improve. Yeah, that's a good point. ZD, anything to add?
No, you guys covered well. I think, like as you see from the data, Fulham overperformed last season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think it is sustainable. I expect it will. They might not do as good as they did last time, especially defensively, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they were getting lots of point from the defenders, but I don't
Mhm.
think it might happen because if they do it, I mean, it would be a good improvement for them, like do it consistently. But it's very tough
Right.
in my eyes. So
Yeah.
yeah, otherwise you guys covered
And,
it well.
and I think, yeah, mid to be also go to Saudi Arabia, then
Yeah, they're
they're
in a
not.
bigger trouble. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at least from data standpoint, last season they weren't the top 10 team, right? They were not one of the top 10 teams, but they ended up because other teams weren't as good
Yeah.
either, right? So Chelsea were bad, uh, Tottenham were bad, and so on. So they did end up inside top 10, but yeah, you're right, Zidi. I don't expect them to sustain that level of performance this year. So yeah, I think we covered the teams well. Let's talk about the defensive data quickly a little bit as well. Similar-ish story. Again, Manchester City, as always, elite defensive data. They barely considered zero point 0.8 xg per game throughout the season. Newcastle were the surprise package, right? Last year, they kind of started to improve on under Howe the earlier season, but last season is when we really saw them flourish, right? And we were targeting their defensive assets, Trippier, Shar, Botman, etc., or Pope, all through the season when they had double game weeks, or they didn't even have double game weeks. So Newcastle is a team to keep our eyes on again, see if they can sustain that level of performance. They do look like a good defensive unit, right? Not just good defenders. They have a good defensive unit with Bruno Guimaraes in the midfield, Joe Linton in the midfield. They just good look like a solid outfit that knows what they're doing, right? Essentially. So I don't expect Newcastle's data to drop all of a sudden. So even this season, I think After maybe first few game weeks, we'll start looking at Newcastle's defensive assets as well. Their start is a little difficult. We'll talk about it when we look at the fixtures. But after that, when the fixtures turn, I think we'll again target Newcastle defenders pretty much. Arsenal again were good. They did drop off back end of the season. But even so, overall, throughout the season, their performance was still very good. Saliba was a great miss, right? So once he's back, uh, and they are buying a good solid outfit, like solid backups as well for Europe this year. Rice is there, so we do expect their defensive numbers to improve, if anything. Overall, we'll see how that goes. But if, of course, the new team building process as well doesn't always go according to plan. But again, we expect Arsenal to do well in general. One team that stood out was Crystal Palace. They have had the fourth best XGC last year. And a lot of teams kind of in the same ballpark of between 1.2 to 1.4 ish, kind of crowded area right there. Man United, Liverpool, Brentford, Villa, even Chelsea, West Ham, Tottenham, and so on. But Palace is kind of going under the radar. I don't think we are talking about Palace a lot. There is a reason, of course, as well. Their defenders are not necessarily the ones that we look forward to get attacking like returns from, right? Michel or whatever, Daniel Ward, etc., etc. They are not necessarily the defenders who we expect attacking returns from, right? So, but in general, as a defensive unit, again, when they have good fixtures, especially given their defenders are all priced at 4.5. I think they could be good options when they have good fixtures again. Not sure again whether we want to start with one of their defenders in the early season, but again when the fixtures are there potentially. Liverpool, in general, before last season, we have seen them posting elite defensive numbers as well, almost parallel with Manchester City for a few seasons. Last season was a big drop off. Van Dijk's performance dropped off. Fabinho dropped off like significantly. So overall, their performance wasn't as good defensively. They started to kind of solidify at the back end again, but I think this year would be a test, especially see if they can have a replacement for Fabinho or not. I think they're targeting Lavia and a few others. I'm pretty sure they will end up buying a CDM. Um, and they have McAllister, but of course he's not necessarily the Fabinho replacement. So they still need some defensive kind of reinforcement for sure. Even Robertson as a left center back is not ideal, right? Especially the back end of the last season when they were playing Trent up front. So it was essentially like a three-man back line, right? With mostly VVD, Konate, and Robertson. So they probably need to find a better left center back replacement for Robertson as well if they continue playing that formation. So there's that. But again, we most likely expect Liverpool's defensive performance to improve, given if they buy a defender. So we'll talk about it a little more when we talk about Trent Alexander, as of course, he's priced at 8 million this year, whether he's worth or not, given Liverpool's defensive numbers last year. So that's that. Essentially, I don't think there is a lot more. ZD already said that Fulham really overperformed their defensive numbers. Um, Tottenham was one curious case when I was looking at the data. Tottenham and Man United basically have the same underlying numbers, exact same underlying numbers, but Tottenham ended up conceding 20 more goals in comparison to Man United over the season. So that's something that's interesting. Again, they haven't bought any new center backs yet, but I know they're in the market for new CBs. They really need some enforcement at the back. As I was saying earlier, we already saw signs of improvement. How Tottenham wants to play more the aggressor, not counter-attacking based teams. So we'll see how that proceeds in the preseason. But there could be some vested investment in Tottenham defense as well. But we'll have to keep our eyes open, see how Poro does, how the left back is playing. There is like a 4.5 million defender in Udogi who could play left back, right? So Tottenham wing backs are always of interest. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's basically it. Anything to add, Wrangler?
So yeah, one thing I just would like to add, and probably could be a good segue for the next section. So goalkeepers actually played some roles here too. So,
Hmm.
like as you mentioned, right, Man United considered 20 less goal than Spurs, and Spurs actually didn't have a good
Correct.
goalkeeper like for a big
Correct.
chunk of this season, right? And
Yes.
they got Vicario, I think, I guess,
Hmm.
this season. So, and Man United, I mean, definitely they actually had the highest clean sheet last season,
Right.
17.
Yeah.
From
Dia got the Golden Gloves, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, so Diggy actually played role there, although we had to kind of saying goodbye, but again that was
Hmm.
for the sake of the team, right? So, but Man United, Diggy played actually roles there too, for
Hmm.
overperforming. Another thing I would like to mention, like Everton here. So we already talked about Fulham, but Everton actually kind of also overperform in terms of their
Yeah.
XG considered, and that's where I think goalkeeper definitely played a very big role, and
Hmm.
that probably is gonna. I mean, we're gonna talk about it in the next slide whenever we move to the goalkeeper section. So.
Yep. Yep. Anything to add, ZD?
No, you guys covered very well. I mean, obviously, again, the same teams um, are under the radar, like Aston Villa, Brentford. Those teams, I mean, they are the defense actually good, so they are improving from the mid-table team. I mean, they are the one to watch, I would say. And Aston Villa's defenders, all I think, 4.5 except Moreno,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, they're especially for cheapish defense, Brentford, Aston Villa. Those are the teams that we're going to target for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So let's move on. We'll talk about the goalkeepers next. Again, we just spoke about the defensive data, so it'll be a nice segue into that as well. And again, today we are only looking at the data. We're not that much talking about the fixtures and so on. Goalkeeper is one of those positions that you don't want to use your transfers for anyways. So it's kind of depends on how long you're looking at when you'll use your first wild card. But in general, you want to get a guy that you can ideally hold for the 16, 18 weeks time frame until you absolutely have to use your wild card, right? So I think goalkeeper is one of those positions. It's critical at the same time, especially last season that we saw the premium goalkeepers were not worth the value. Allison was better than Ederson, of course, but a lot of people were frustrated with Ederson, especially even getting rotated at the back end of the season. That was not normal, of course, but that was kind of frustrating how Man City kept losing clean sheets at the end of the games and so on, right? So there is that. So I don't think there are a lot of people who will have a premium goalkeeper to start with. A lot of us had Pope, right, for majority of last season, but even Pope priced at 5.5, I think that point 0.5 becomes way too important for us, especially given where you can have like a 5 million defender in Shar, right, Fabian Shar, or even go up to like a Trippier at 6.5 who could well be worth it. So I don't think there will be a lot of interest in Pope either this season in general, but of course it depends again on the fixtures and a few other things and when you are playing your wild card. So ideally would expect to most of us would try to pick a goalkeeper who is priced either at 5 million or if possible at 4.5 million and rotated if we can find who the 4 million goalkeeper is going to be, who will be a regular starter for any team, right? For a 4 million goalkeeper we don't necessarily care who he plays for. It's more that he's a regular starter. When needed we can call upon him. So that's basically the idea for the second goalkeeper. But for the first goalkeeper, most of us would try to target a 4.5 or 5 million goalkeeper, right? So let's talk about the 5 million goalkeepers. Wrangler, you touched a little bit on Vicario. So, of course, Tottenham suffered a great deal because of Loris last season. Vicario's numbers in general look good. At least his save potentials look good. His post shot save potential looks good in general as well in comparison to what we have seen from Loris in the past, at least. So there is a good chance, but of course, at the same time, do you want to take the chance with Tottenham defense in general? Especially again, the defenders being priced nicely, right? Poro is 5 million as well. So you'd rather have a Poro in comparison to a Vicario, right? So that's one thing. Uh, And then Kepa is still 5 million. I think last season he started at 4.5. He ended the season maybe at 4.8 ish. So his starting price is 5 million this year. I think Kepa still could be a good option. There is a little bit of chance that Chelsea may still buy a goalkeeper, but that chance is diminishing as days go. So I think Kepa will at least start the season as the first choice goalkeeper for Pochettino. Um, his save potential is pretty good. Uh, I mean, he's not a great goalkeeper in general, but for FPL, from an FPL perspective, I think he still is a good asset. Even at 5 million, he could be a good asset. But again, depends on fixtures, depends on when you want to play your wild card, whether you want to invest in other defensive assets from Chelsea and etc. etc. One, of course, very prominent name that we are seeing, especially in Twitter over the last couple of days, is Onana, right? So as we already spoke about, he did pretty well. Manu's defensive numbers in general were pretty good. uh, Onana is a kind of goalkeeper who plays the ball from the back, who is a good passer of the ball, right? That's why ETH is targeting him, because he wants to play a build-up play from the back. So Onana has good bonus potential. That's something that I think the average guys also covered very well. So I don't want to talk too much about that, but he, because of his passing range and etc., he has very good bonus potential. But again, the discussion is whether you want to double up on menu defense if you have, say, for example, Luke Shaw, right? Or any of the other menu defenders who are cheaper. Uh, whether Luke Shaw is that 500,000 worth over Onana, things like those, right? Of course, Shaw is a more proven asset, but given what we have seen or given how ETH wants to play, I think there's a big potential for Onana at 5 million. I think if he is priced at 5, of course, the transfer hasn't gone through yet. If he is priced at 5, he will be the choice at 5 million. Any comments on that, Wrangler, in general, on Onana?
Yeah, as you mentioned, right? If he's 5 million, then definitely he's a very good option. Like,
Mhm.
Man United's fixture actually looked pretty decent, and I mean, they hardly had any bad run. Like, in the first half of the season, and as you mentioned, right, he has a very good bonus potential because of the like his
Mhm.
passing capability. Right, he has
Mhm.
approximately 81%, passing completion, in the last
Yeah.
season, which is elite. So I mean, I'm looking forward to it, but again, the team needs to adjust. We hope like he's gonna probably have a medical tomorrow, and then
Mhm.
if he starts the preseason, Man United will have some time, like at least 6 to 7 games to adjust. So we'll see how
Yeah.
it goes, but wait and see. I will not buy him right now, but definitely if he's 5 million, very good potential for bonus and everything. So, and Man
Yep.
United is not gonna look good defensively too. So he might get like 9 to 11 points very easily with clean sheet.
Yeah. The other obvious 5 million goalkeeper is Raya. We are not talking as much about him because there's a good chance he can leave, of course, right? He becomes a free agent next season, and I don't think Brentford can afford to lose him without any money, any transfer fee. But we'll see how that goes. But if Raya stays, he was elite. His numbers were elite last year. Brentford's defense was average in general, but they are pretty good in keeping clean sheets at home and so on. And Raya is very good for bonus potential, right? Because he gets a lots and lots of saves. He was the highest saves per 90 minutes goalkeeper last year. So there will still be eyes on Raya. If Raya leaves, I think the obvious 4.5 goalkeeper choice is Flecken, who we do expect to take the number one. If again, given if Raya leaves, right? So there is a lot of interest in Flecken. Uh, Again, sometimes fixtures don't matter as much for goalkeepers. You're just trying to go through the fixtures in a way, a goalkeeper that you can hold for a longer period of time, right? So especially if you're looking at saves potential, bonus potential, I think there's a good chance that Flecken might become the template at 4.5 million. The other options, I would say Pickford has a lot of people have interest in Pickford, because especially because of their fixtures, initial fixtures, right? The first few fixtures look pretty good for clean sheet potential. When if anything, if Everton ever gets clean sheets, those are the fixtures, right? So if you, especially if you are looking to wildcard early-ish, like maybe before game week 8 or something, Pickford is probably not the worst choice. We spoke about Leno and how Fulham overperformed defensively. Leno is also 4.5. There is some interest in Leno as well. Uh, but again, it's to be seen how Fulham perform this year, whether they can keep performing like the way they did before, and whether Leno can keep performing the way he did last year, right? But he has very good save and bonus potential as well. Uh, One goalkeeper again, briefly spoke about Crystal Palace. Johnstone's numbers are a little inflated because all the games that he played in were the easier fixtures at the back end of the season. So his ex clean sheet looks better than anyone on this chart, right? So other than Ederson, of course. But again, to be seen how Crystal Palace does this year. But if Johnston is still the first choice, I think there will be some interest with Johnston as well, especially given if they have decent fixtures or when they have different decent fixtures. So yeah, I think those three or four, I'd say four, Flecken, Pickford, Leno, and Johnstone are kind of the four goalkeepers at 4.5 million that we are looking at. There are a few other options, Henderson, and so on. Again, we'll have to see in the preseason who are the number one goalkeepers for the different teams. At 4 million, there is some potential that Areola may become number one for West Ham. Uh, but Fabianski again did play today, so I'm not sure what his contract situation is. If he gets the contract, if he stays, I'm assuming uh, Fabianski will still be the first choice goalkeeper over Areola. And there could be other 4 million options. I think Bentley, is it? The Wolves goalkeeper. Jose Sa may leave. If Sa leaves, Bentley may become an option. Um, and I think they're buying another goalkeeper. I forgot who they're buying, but he is also 4 million, priced at 4 million. So there could be definite number one goalkeeper at Wolves who is priced at 4 million. So again, the 4 million goalkeeper is not something that we are looking to play. Just a guy that plays. So if needed, we can call upon him. So who are your guys? I'm pretty sure. I mean, neither of us have tinkered a whole lot. But who is your choice of goalkeeper right now, Wrangler?
So so far actually, like I'm looking for 4.5, or at least thinking to start with 4.5. Thinking to keep as much money as I can for the outfield players.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where between Leno and Pickford, as you discussed before, I actually, so far Pickford is in my team, and it's kind of a fixture play because Fulham actually is playing like versus Man City and Arsenal in the first four game, which is kind of difficult run. While in terms of fixture, Everton has kind of better than Fulham, so that's why Pickford is my choice. But
Mm-hmm.
again, Abdullah was asking, right? One question in the chat, I see that would you prefer Onana if he's 5 million
Mm-hmm.
over any 4.5? So it's something to see definitely, and we need to see the preseason game of Man United, and it's
Yeah.
good that we are playing some good games like against Arsenal, Real Madrid, Dortmund, in the preseason. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
get some time, to see that, and if we look promising, I think Onana would be a very good shout. And also if Raya leaves, so that's another thing. But right now, Pickford, Onana to be seen.
Yeah, I think there is a school of thought as well that Luke Shaw may lose his bonus potential with Onana in, because he won't have to pass as much. So, do you want to save that 0.5 million picking Onana over Shaw? So that's there as well. So if you are not if you are picking Shaw, of course you pick a 4.5 million goalkeeper for another team. But if you're picking Onana, then you basically invest that money back in another defense. So yeah, it's basically the combination play how you want to do it. So I don't think there is a straightforward answer yet, but as you said, we'll have to look at some preseason games. ZD, who is your choice right now for goalkeepers?
So if Freya leaves, I'll go with Flecken. I mean, that's the only 4.5 I think option for me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like actually Pickford, Leno. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, their fixture is good. I mean, there is safe potential, but I like Brentford goalkeeper more. That's why Flecken. But if say Raya, yeah, I can have Raya if Raya stays, but like for 5 million, if Onana is 5 million, um,
Mm-hmm.
after seeing the preseason, probably go with Onana. But other than that, I was tinkering about Martinez, like from Aston Villa,
Mm-hmm.
because he has good save potential, and I mean he's also, I mean, we all know he's a good goalkeeper. So I was just thinking probably set and forget Martinez. Even I had Ramsdale for a long time, but I think Gabriel is better shout
Yeah,
from
I think
Arsenal
Arsenal
because
have better assets than to
yeah,
invest on goalkeeper.
rather
Yeah.
than Ramsdale, probably Gabriel or like attackers, they are like more solid options.
Mhm.
So I was mainly with these options. I mean, not whole of option. I just thought like these
Yep.
three four names.
No, yeah, Martinez interesting, and again to be seen how Villa does. But they have bought Pau Torres this year already, right? So their defense is would expect it to more solid, but we'll see how that goes. So yeah, Martinez is someone that I haven't thought a lot about. Now that you have talked about it, I'll probably think about it a little more. Look at their fixtures.
Martinez is
Um,
4.5 or 5, is he?
Five.
Martinez
He's
is
five.
five.
If he's
Martinez.
4.5, I think he would be
Oh yeah,
in
that
the
would be
market.
a game breaker almost. Yeah,
Yeah,
if he was
but
4.5.
5 million, it's little tough to invest. But again, I think Villa improved a lot defensively after uh, when the coach came, the coach. So I think Martinez could be a good one uh, for the long run.
Yeah,
So that's the thought.
yeah. No, interesting thought. Interesting. All right. Okay. That was goalkeepers. Wrangler, you want to take us to the defender data?
Yeah, so basically for defender here, we are showing last season's XG considered per 90 for the team along y-axis, and along x-axis is different defenders xgi per 90. So basically xg goal involvement, both assist and goal potential. So um, as you know, for our fourth quadrant chart, is basically if you are in the top right quadrant, that's the most, like lucrative ones. That's because if you see here, if you're in the top right quadrant, it's basically the defender has higher goal threat potential, as well as the team also has better clean sheet potential, and that's what you look for the defenders, right? And that's where, if you see the data, as we discussed before, that Newcastle had, like I think they were second in terms of XGC in last season, and that's kind of show up here as well. That the Newcastle defenders kind of in the top, like Trippier, Shar, Botman, Barn, and Trippier is like basically at the very top right, because he was kind of season keeper in the last season, right? So his goal involvement, and bonus as well, everything. He was really like basically template pick, like 100% EO, right? We had, and that was justified this year. Like whenever we saw his pricing, right? He's now 6.5 million. So that's one, like Trippier, basically, like Newcastle's fixture is somewhat tricky, at least in the first four games. So that's why, because of the price as well as Newcastle's fixture, Trippier is kind of under the radar right now, at least as a game week one. But I think we'll go there whenever the fixture swing happens for Newcastle. Next, would like to touch upon Trent, and that's a very big discussion right now. That, as you mentioned, right, with 8 million, is really Trent worth it? So he actually generated like 0.33 xgi just next to Trippier in the last season, and he had new role, like at the very end of the season, like he was playing inverted role and having lots of chances. So um, Trent is Trent, and this season we expect him again to kind of do whatever he has been doing in last few seasons, right? So that's where Trent. Poro, as you mentioned before as well, right? About Poro, that we need to see how Spurs shape up after the new manager and some new signing. But Poro's number actually looked pretty good. I mean, he actually matched Trent
Mhm.
in last season. So at 5 million, I think he could be a very good shout. And I mean, definitely we need to see if he's a nailed. I think he is. Today also he started, um, and also I think they signed a new left back. Is it Udogi now? I think right from Udinese.
Yeah, he was loaned last year, I think, but he's back from loan essentially.
Right. So today, actually, I think he scored a goal as well, right, in the preseason, preseason assist rate. So
Mhm.
that's something to see. I think he's 4.5. But yeah, his data is not here, but definitely something to see. Next, would like to like touch Chilwell and James, the Chelsea boys. Chelsea didn't do well last season in terms of defensive numbers, as you can see, right? And Reece James was always a troll. I mean, he was, I mean, kind of injured, like majority, and Chilwell as well. But again, they had the potential, and this season we'll see under like Pochettino how it looks like. But and they're priced really well, 5.5, right? So we'll see. And Robertson at 6.5, I think his number looked better, but again, I mean, at 5.5, probably you'll be able to get kind of better assets. So I don't see Robertson's appeal here. Moreno, ZD already mentioned, right? That Moreno is another
Mhm.
defender from Aston Villa. So Aston Villa's number looked good as well as Moreno's attacking potential looked good. So he could be a very good shout from Aston Villa. Now, other players I would like to touch upon here is Stones and Ake. As you can see, they're in the top, like top left quadrant. So basically, their attacking potential was not there much, and also they were kind of injured as well, on and off. There was rotation there as well, right? But Stones
Mhm.
actually played like inverted role. He had a new role as well. But again, they didn't have much of XGI.
Yeah.
But in terms of clean sheet, Man City is always elite, right? So that's why they're in the top left. So at 5 or 5.5, we need to see how much nail there, and they might have new signing. We'll see. Bardiol might be there. So then in that case, Ake probably will not have much of appeal. But again, something to see. And at 4.5, Botman and Barn are there. Again, I think Botman is a very popular shout or good shout. If you want to keep 4.5, like in your bench for first few games, because Newcastle have tough fixture. Uh,
Mhm.
but again, after that, he could be a good shout. And then Arsenal boys, you can see a cluster there, right? White, Gabriel, and Zinchenko. You're kind of all kind of clustered together because their XGI kind of similar. Now White is priced 5.5, and they have like new signing Timber. So basically, White's appeal completely gone, right? I guess over there. But Zinchenko and Gabriel are pretty good shouts. They
Five
are
million. Yeah, both
5
5 million.
million, right? They
Yeah.
are 5.5 million cheaper. They have good clean sheet potential, and one bullet header from Gabriel, it's gonna go to like 14 or 15 points very easily, and their fixtures are
Mhm.
very good, like Arsenal fixture run, right? So yeah, those are the couple of the players I'd like to talk about. And Shaw is there, but again, as you mentioned, right, if Onana is 5 billion, then probably Onana is more appealing than Shaw. Something to look. Anything you want to add here?
I think one player you miss because he's behind the line is Estupinian. I think he's
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
he's the most highly owned defender right now, right? Again, he was priced nicely at 5 million. Especially we have all the memories from last season. I got burned for not having Estupinian, and I had to steal. That one game it killed me. So we all have that memory, right? And he was very dangerous, right? And he could have been even better from an attacking return standpoint, right? He kept missing chances and so on. But yeah, Estupinian is most highly owned defender right now. Uh, I think 5 million. He is not necessarily the best defender overall in the game, but because of the first few fixtures, I think their first three are really really good, right? Including Luton, Sheffield, etc. So that's the appeal essentially, especially to start with Estupinian. Of course, we can swap to another 5 million defender later, but I think there is almost no reason to start with Estupinian as it stands, right?
Right. Yeah. I completely forgot about Estupinian, but yeah, I
Mhm.
think he's kind of in. He's locked
Yeah.
just because of the fixture, and he has attack potential as well. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's talk about trend quickly. ZD, what do you think? Trend or no trend? Which side are you on right now?
It's obviously difficult without any precision game. When I made my first draft, Trent was in there, but now as I think so much, feels like I might start without Trent. But obviously depends on the preseason game. But
Hmm.
feels like without Trent, I get more flexibility,
Hmm.
like especially in the mid. So I want to see how Liverpool perform defensively at first. I know Trent is for attacking, but I mean they bought lots of players this year as well. So just probably I might not start with him. I'm thinking, and obviously if he performs good, then I need to bring him. In that case, probably I just need to make two transfers, right?
Yep.
So that will be in my mind, but but right now I'm thinking like as 8 million, you can make a good team probably
Hmm.
in a mid. You could sacrifice someone, you can have Mitoma or like 6 million,
And Kiso, something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
someone. uh, but again I'm not, we will have discussion there probably, but I am not totally convinced with Mitoma as well, because
Hmm.
this is different season. He had a streak and then later he was not scoring any goals, so
Yep. Yep.
we need to see a little bit, I think, before going there.
Absolutely. I agree.
And
Okay.
for Alexander Arnold, yeah, I just need to see the preseason game, but right now feels like probably I can hide behind the sofa for four
Yeah.
five weeks.
Yeah. It feels like too much money. And as you said, it basically getting Trent means sacrificing your seventh attacker, right? Either you play 4-5-1 with Trent, or you have a seventh attacker who is weak-ish, right? Like below 6 million or something. So whether you want to do that, and I mean, I think people make it too big of a deal for price point. As you said, it's nothing that you cannot get back to, right? Even if you don't start with Trent, with two transfers if needed, maybe a hit. If he really becomes the bandwagon, you can always get there, right? So I think people make it really too big of a deal that you have to have that price point, right? Because if you don't start with him, then it's going to be trouble. That's all right. If you think that your team looks better with Trent, start, and if you need to go there, do that, right? Later on, that's all right, I think. Anything else
Absolutely.
you want to
I
add?
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
one thing, it depends on other defenders. Like
Hmm.
right now I have 5 to 5.5 million
Okay, yeah, sure.
defenders. All are
Mm-hmm.
good. Yeah, right. So
Mm-hmm.
actually depends on, I think, Man City. Like
Correct.
if Stones become nail, or like we know that someone is
Mm-hmm.
nail like Stones or like Gabriel. I know there is no way to know, but it depends on injury and how they
Yeah,
start their preseason and everything. It all depends on them, and they have the
exactly.
first game. Obviously, hopefully, we'll
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. As you
get the
said, I
league.
think there are
So,
there are enough
but
5 to 5 million-ish
I
defenders, right?
if like for my draft, I was thinking to start with
Mm-hmm.
Chilwell.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep.
I was starting with Chilwell because rather than going back in game week 3, I was thinking of starting with him. So
Mm-hmm.
it depends on preseason games, but I think there are good options. If we don't go to Trent, we have some good options at 5 million, 5.5 million.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree. Anything to else to add, Wrangler, before we move on?
no, yeah, we can move on.
Okay, all right. So let's quickly talk about the midfielders and forwards, and I'm pretty sure we'll talk a lot more about this because when we talk about FPL, of course, we're interested in defenders and goalkeepers, but forwards and midfielders are where we are trying to gain points over everyone else, right? Most of the time. So Haaland is not on this chart, first of all, and on x-axis we have basically the potential FPL points, attacking FPL points from last season's underlying data. Uh, as we can see, and on y-axis is the BPS, so basically bonus potential as well. A good example is De Bruyne. Even when he's not returning as much, his bonus potential is always very, very high because of his passing accuracy, etc. So he is kind of a very unique scenario. Even Kane, to some extent, whenever he scores a goal, he almost always gets bonus points, right? So those are kind of the standout guys. Uh, but as we see, just from an expected data standpoint, Salah was again, even in his off season, last season was apparently his off season. Even so, he was better than a lot of the other players, right? So essentially, just second behind Haaland from a potential FPL point standpoint. So he's there, and that's another big question right now in the community, whether we want to have that second premium or not. If you don't have Salah, of course, you have a better overall team structure, you have a better bench, and so on. As soon as you have Salah, after having a 14 million Haaland, you barely have money to spend elsewhere, right? So you have to sacrifice maybe one or two more positions. But again, Salah is Salah. I think the big question that we have right now, or basically is not a question anymore, essentially, is captaincy, right? So that I think changes a lot of things from how we used to see it like 2 years ago. We used to have like 2, 3 premiums who would rotate nicely for captaincy and so on. With Haaland being Haaland, with what he can do, and Man City's fixtures, at least in the beginning, are pretty good as well. There is almost not a whole lot of opportunity where we'll captain someone else. Game week 2, maybe, where City plays um Newcastle, right? And Liverpool plays Bournemouth. That's probably the only chance when you would not captain Haaland in the first 6, 7 game weeks. So is it worth to have a Salah just to have your captain sorted out for one game week? Or do you want to have your money spread out elsewhere so that you have a better team structure? You don't have to wildcard early and so on. You have an overall good bench so that you don't have to force your hand for playing an early wildcard and so on, right? So there is a lot to discuss there, but I think there is a very good point. If you're not captaining Salah a whole lot, uh, him and Kane also, same comment for Kane too, right? Again, elite data last year, he kept scoring goals, he couldn't stop scoring goals. Overperformed, of course, but even so, his data was underlying was pretty good as well. But Salah and Kane is essentially down to whether how much you would captain them, and whether spreading the fund makes your team overall better for the first few game weeks. I think elsewhere, Wilson is one guy. I think especially ZD or other people who captained Wilson, right? They had a fantastic end to the season. Wilson looked great when he's fit. We all know how great he is. His numbers again were very, very good whenever he was fit. So he's one of the guys that are kind of going under the radar right now because of their opening fixtures, first 3, 4 game weeks. But after that, I think Wilson could be a pretty easy swap. Like for some example, if you start with Gabriel Jesus, it's a pretty easy swap to Wilson when their fixtures turn, right? Even if you are not playing your wild card, for example. So that's kind of that price bracket that you probably want to capture as well. Jesus, Wilson, and Watkins as well, right? In that same price bracket. So that's a good price bracket to have, I think, for the second forward position, so that you can easily swap around if anyone becomes a bandwagon at any point of time, or if you think that you need to get on that because have good fixtures coming on. Uh, Elsewhere, I think the Liverpool boys had very good data. Darwin and Jota uh, is still questionable if Luis Diaz stays, if, of course, Gakpo is there, or Hakpo, however you want to pronounce it. It's still unclear how Liverpool will shape up, right? And with Trent going forward, or will if they buy a new CDM, will Trent stay back? So there is a lot of unknown about Liverpool, I think, to invest almost in any attackers who is not Salah. If anything is worth investing at the beginning of the season, it's most likely Salah. I think there's too much uncertainty on Jota, Darwin, Hakpo, Luis Diaz, who will play, how many minutes they will get, and so on. There are better assets in the same price range elsewhere who are more nailed, right? At least in the beginning of the season, where you want to play somewhat safe. But if you are looking for the upside, I think there is no bigger upside than these two guys, essentially. Darwin and Jota this year is a midfielder, correct? If I'm not wrong. Got changed from forward to midfielder. So those two guys are the explosive guys, right? So if you want to chase the upside, they're good options. But if you want to, again, don't want to push your hand for an early wild card and so on, rather play safe. The menu boys, Wrangler, you can maybe add something on Rashford and Fernandez. How are you looking at Rashford and Fernandez this season?
So I think both of them are very good options, especially like Bruno Fernandez at 8.5. I think, I mean it's a um, kind of steal for Bruno Fernandez, because he actually was
Hmm.
unfortunate last season because we didn't have good strikers to finish, but he actually had chances.
Hmm.
So, but again, Rashford is zero point 0.5 million, kind of higher than him. But uh, I think that's why, I mean, zero point 0.5 million higher, but Rashford has more upside. And as well as one thing I would like to mention, that like for Bruno Fernandes, after the Mount signing,
Hmm.
now we need to see, like, definitely I think the plan is to have two number eights, but sometimes since we have now Mount can play number 10, we might see sometimes Bruno Fernandes might go to the deeper role, and
Hmm.
that's when you might not be happy as the owner of him.
Yeah.
But right, my current draft actually have both of them. By the way, I mean, I plan to have both of them because
Hmm.
Rashford is definitely locked, and Bruno Fernandes at 8.5. I think at that price, I like him most out of all of these 8.5, except Saka, definitely.
Hmm.
But again, I think he's a steal. So I like them both. I think.
Yep. Yeah.
My
Well put. Yeah.
and
Well
then
put. I think for Fernandez, it's basically look at the preseason where he plays. Back end of the last season, he was actually doing pretty good in the deeper role, right? Of course, that does decrease his FPL potential. We are not happy, but he, for from a team structure standpoint, he was really doing good at that role. But Ericsson is there, of course. Casemiro, if Casemiro is fit and playing, Mount there, so yet to be seen, right? How the team dynamics develop this year. So we'll see. Uh, Two players on not on this chart are the two Arsenal boys, Saka and Odegaard, and we were talking about it, right, Wrangler, a couple days ago. That's surprising that they're not on this chart. Saka, especially, I was very surprised that he didn't cut the criteria that we are looking at, essentially 2 x attacking point per game per 90 minutes. But he did overperform like very significantly, right? I think his XGI was like 0.48, but his goal involvement was over zero point 0.7, right? 0.7 plus, something like that. So he did significantly overperform despite missing the penalties as well, right? He did miss, I think, one penalty, not penalties, one penalty. So even with that, he did significantly overperform. And I don't think that will necessarily change. We have seen someone like Heung-min Son overperforming over the years. They're just elite finishers, right? Saka is looks like kind of that guy. Of course, this is his only his third full season. We sounds like we have been seeing Saka forever, but this is essentially his only third like full season around. So yet to be seen, but I think given that he plays for Arsenal, given that he is on penalties, given that his X minutes are probably more secure than any other attacker in that team, he is a lock in my team, right? I mean, I am a data guy. I always look at data, but Saka is kind of an exception. Has to be an exception. He hasn't left my draft even for a moment. And I don't think he is going to leave the draft either. So, what are your thoughts on the Arsenal attackers, ZD, on Martinelli, Jesus, Saka? Are you going to look with three attackers, or combination of attackers and a defender?
Mm, Yep, I mean their picture looks very good. Like honestly to have three attackers, but
Mhm.
again the real issue is uh, how nailed is going. How many minutes will it going to have? Like for Martinelli, as
Mhm.
Trossard is in there with the new signings, right? And Odegaard, I think he will play. He might play a little deeper. He might make those run in the box to score. So it depends. But for now, I think obviously Saka is locked because he will play all the games and he's on penalties and he overperformed because he actually make scores like those XG goals and he will continue to do it, right? And he's
Mhm.
very young. So I think Saka is locked and Jesus is also. The thing is, I for Jesus misses a lot of chance, but he gets a lots of chance, right? And he's
Yep.
the striker of that team. So, um, and his price range is good to like have an attacker like
Hmm.
over there like for 8 million, so that you can hop on any other attacker like if somebody
Hmm.
emerges. So yeah, Jesus is in there. So but I mean, I don't mind to have Odegaard or like say Martinelli.
Hmm.
Obviously, I think Martinelli will start because he was very good in the last season, and 8 million, I think that price is also justified. So
Nice interest. Yeah.
it all depends actually who you prefer, but these are
Mhm.
all good options.
Yep, well put, well put. One thing I'd like to touch on are the Brighton attackers as well. They were one of the better attacking teams last season, right? And as you were saying earlier, ZD as well, Mitoma was their kind of star performer, but from an underlying standpoint, and even at the back end of the season, uh, when kind of defenders understood what Mitoma wants to do, he was stopped, right? He didn't score as prolifically at the back end of the last season. Uh, Still had good data. March's data is slightly better from a BPS standpoint. No, actually, very similar data from a XG involvement standpoint. And Kiso is someone that I'm very interested in because of the price range as well, 5.5 million. If he becomes an option, if he's regular, if he has regular minutes, I think he'll almost be the template guy to go to because you can essentially hold him forever, right? You don't even have to move around a whole lot. Spend your money elsewhere, either have your second premium or have a Trent Alexander Arnold. So he enables a whole lot, right? And so Enkiso is someone that I'm definitely interested with, but Mitoma is more the template guy, right? So if you want to play safe, you go with Mitoma. March is not as heavily owned, especially because how he ended the last season with injuries and everything. So people, of course, have that in mind. But March's data is not actually that different from Mitoma's. But Enkiso interests me for sure. Uh, Two other guys I would like to touch base on quickly are Son and Starling. They were premiums last year, right? I think Son was like 12.5 million. Starling was also 10.5 or 11 million, something like that. And they are proven performers in the Premier League, right? Over the years, over the last 4, 5, 6 years. I think Starling had multiple 200 plus point seasons. Son has had multiple 200 plus seasons. So we know what they can do, right? They are essentially premium players priced at a lower price because they didn't have a good last season, right? As simple as that. So I do expect both Son and Sterling to improve this season because I do expect Spurs and Chelsea to improve as teams overall this season as well. So I am very interested. I'm very interested to actually start with both if I can. But of course, it'll depend on who are the other sacrifices that I'm making. But given if I can have both of them, I'm very interested. There is a nice fixture swing at around game week 3 or so as well, right? Especially for Chelsea. And for Spurs, I think the fixtures are in general good up to almost game week 10. So if given that you know that what they can do, I think there is a big upside. I don't think there is anyone as explosive as those two guys on this chart, barring Salah, of course, right? Salah and Kane, of course, they are proven assets. But from an explosiveness standpoint, I don't think there is anyone that even comes close to Son and Sterling as individual players. But of course, again, it all comes back to how the team performs as well, right? If Chelsea still shows what they were showing last year, probably don't expect a lot. So we'll need to maybe look at first couple of game weeks how Nkunku comes into play. Of course, we don't have Nkunku's data here, but he could be another guy that we could look at down the road. And also for Spurs, how Son copes up with the new system under the new manager. But yeah, those two are definitely the guys that I'd be very much interested in. Anything else that you want to add, Wrangler or ZD?
Yeah, just two other players to look for is Foden and Madison at
Mhm.
7.5. We actually have like a lot of good options this time at 7.5 and 7. Mount is there too, by the way. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. He might be also another player. You might not need Bruno Fernandes. Who knows? Mount could be the one, and
True.
that
Yeah.
will allow you some more fun to use elsewhere. Foden is a great option so far because De Bruyne is injured, so and also Mahrez is is
Sleeping.
kind of
Yeah.
going to Saudi Arabia. So people are expecting his X minutes to be higher, and whenever Foden starts, he has always has had whole potential, and especially actually always had some great runs. Either you miss it or get it, but he always had that run. And I mean, I think if you see that he's starting in the Community Shield, people
Mm-hmm.
might like he might be
Yep.
very
Could
popular.
easily become a template. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and Madison there too. Just need to look for as well how he kind of is used in new Spurs team. So just
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, the Brentford guys we didn't talk about Mbomo and potentially Wissa. Maybe Wissa can come up in the next chart. Maybe we just move to the next chart and talk about them. Anything else, ZD, that you wanted to add before we move on?
No, I wanted to talk about Foden, and Wrangler talked about it.
Okay.
And probably people will also look into minutes for Ferguson. Uh, the problem is with the Brighton, I think they're who is going to start. I mean, they are very explosive team, but
Mm-hmm.
it's always like distributed. But
Yeah.
like Ferguson is also an interesting pick.
And they
Yeah.
have a new signing, so I mean that's another like Joao Pedro
Sure,
is.
Pedro. Yeah. Yeah, they
So
have a lot of players to kind of play in that one position, right? They have Welbeck, Kundav, and so on. So yeah, but if Ferguson is regular, I agree. He could be a very good option. Even Julian Alvarez, right? We
yeah,
didn't talk a whole lot about them. If KDB is indeed injured, we did see Alvarez playing a lot of minutes when KDB was out or was not playing, didn't start. So who knows? Alvarez is still 6.5 million, I think, if I'm not wrong.
yeah.
So it's still very nicely priced. So he could become easily an option if KDB doesn't start the season. But yeah, yet to be seen. We'll get a lot of information before the season from preseason games, from the Community Shield, etc. Right? So we'll see. So let's quickly move to the next chart, Wrangler. If you want to add anything for the budget attackers specifically.
No, I think we covered pretty. I mean, you already talked about NCSO and we talked about Ferguson as well. One name is DCL at 6 million, but again in the preseason game he couldn't start,
Already
and
injured, right? Yeah.
he has been injury prone, but whenever he started, he was really good, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you see here, along x-axis is the price and along y-axis is the XGI per 90.
Mm-hmm.
Even like whenever he was fit in last season, he did show promising number.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to just see, and we will need these enablers, especially like if you like to get Salah. I mean, I think if you already tinkered with Salah, I think I mean, in your team, then you definitely felt that you need an enabler like NCSO or someone like DCL, so that you need that like
Yeah.
seventh, right?
Your
So
seventh attacker needs to be essentially from this.
exactly, and
Yeah.
we always had this kind of case. Like I mean, one of the like low price player always has bandwagon, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's need to be seen who is going to be that player this season. It could be
Mm-hmm.
NCSO, as you mentioned, and then it could be a very good option. It could be Ferguson, it could be Ings even. I mean, today also Ings scored, by the way, and in the first preseason game also I think he scored. We'll see how like. I mean, we should not judge based on preseason definitely, like every time, but at least there is a potential there too. And I think these are the couple of players, and like Pereira now he's 5.5. I don't think he has that appeal that he had last season because of his price.
Mm-hmm.
So best player to see is probably Enciso, Ferguson, DCL, and I would say Ings uh, reluctantly, but we'll see.
Yeah, but one player we didn't talk about is Bowen because he wasn't on the chart, of course.
Seven
But
million.
he is in red hot form. He already has like 3 goals, 3 assists in 4 preseason games.
Hmm.
So that's something to look out for as well. Bowen had a very good season just one season ago, right? So last season he kind of didn't reach the same heights. But again, one of those players who could easily explode if he has the right fixtures and so on. I think they play Bournemouth in the last game week, if I'm not wrong. First game week, I mean. So good fixture to start with. Then it turns maybe
Bournemouth.
not as good. I think Bournemouth and then Chelsea, something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, Bowen could be a good differential, I
Very
guess.
good
But
differential.
again,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, so let's move on. You want to quickly talk about this? I think we have touched most of it.
Yeah, so we talked about all the data based on last season. So we thought to kind of make like not 11 because goalkeeper is not there. So like a
Mhm,
team of 10 who has the had the highest XGI in last season. But we also wanted to make sure like in FPL you cannot have all the attackers, right? You have to have defenders as well. So we put like top 7 attackers here and also made sure max 3 forward, because that's what you can max. I mean, have max right in the FPL,
mhm,
right? So
mhm,
these are essentially the top 7 attackers with highest XGIs, be it forward 3 forward and also 4 midfields, and then we had 3 best defenders in terms of XGI. And the left one is the total nPxGI, non-penalty XGI in the last season, and the right one is basically par 90. And as you can see, out of 10, 8 players are same.
mhm,
Um, Only Watkins and Kane had higher XGI because they played more games, right? So they actually accumulated more XGI. But in terms of par 90, like Darwin Nunes and Wilson actually had better number than them whenever we consider par 90 and whenever they are fit. And we already talked about it, right? That Darwin Nunes and Wilson could be very good option after few game weeks. We have to see. Otherwise, Haaland is Haaland. Salah is Salah. We talked about Salah. We also talked about Rashford and Bruno Fernandes, right? And their numbers are there. In the left, Martinelli. We are talking about Saka. We are talking about Odegaard. Martinelli is a little bit under the radar, but because of his experience, as Didi mentioned, right? Trossard is there, but I think his number was elite in last season. So if he
mhm.
starts, if he gets like 70 75 minutes, I think he's very good option, 0.5 million cheaper than Saka and Odegaard. And in the defense, Trent and Trippier we talked about, and Perisic actually generated the third best number. And this data is from ABREF. But yeah, I guess Trent and Trippier makes sense. Perisic this season probably lost a little bit uphill, but we have to see how his first shape up. So that's all.
Is there a point? We didn't talk a lot about Trippier. Is there a point to start with Trippier this season, especially if you are not looking to wildcard early in the season? At least some people were thinking about it because how elite his data was last year, and there is no reason for that to change either. Do you see any point to start with Trippier by any chance, or is it just not
Um,
worth it to start?
no, I mean, I would not say it's not worth it. Definitely, Newcastle's, I mean, you should back good. Newcastle number was pretty good, right? Even against the big teams as well. And Trippier was really like always taking set pieces, bonus monster. So I would not
Mhm.
say it's not worth it, but again, it's a compromise because if you take Trippier, then in the midfield you may have to compromise someone. So in that case, I would say like, okay, why not
Right.
Trent then? Because I will have to start with Trent. So,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, I think Trippier, I mean, definitely is a good shout. And people, if they keep him, then from game week 5 or 6, game week
Yeah.
4 I think, or 5, yeah, the picture seems pretty good. So you don't
Yeah.
have to worry about the transfer anymore.
Yeah, I mean the thing is that you would expect him to over the season, him to beat any 6.5 million midfielder or attacker forward, right? Over the season. At least that would be the expectation. Again, as I said, we don't see any reason why anything would change how Trippier performed last year. If anything, back end of the season, overall their performance dropped. So, but yeah, I think his price point is just that. I mean, if he was 6, I think he would be template because he is just that extra half a million. I think that's what's keeping people away from him. But he's still pretty highly owned, right? I think overall he's like 35% ish owned. And I think he will still be something like that overall effective ownership by the time we get to game week 1. So yeah, he's one of those guys I think who could hurt you early, especially if he repeats what he did last year. But yeah, we'll see. I'm pretty sure we'll get more solid information on everything else by the time we get to game week 1. Um, so that's that. I think that was all of our data-driven discussion, and as I said, we'll have more team-oriented discussion, more fixture-oriented discussion in the coming in the coming weeks. One thing that we wanted to quickly touch on is the wildcard windows potential game week or potential wildcard one opportunities. So Wrangler, if you want to just spend 5 minutes on this, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. So for this, a big shout out to Legomana. I think who are on Twitter. Everybody knows him. So this is the chart that he generated a few days ago, and just look that chart. And whenever you see that chart, if you kind of look kind of like very closely, you kind of find out that this chart is so good that there are kind of obvious windows you can find for wildcard. So here, basically, whenever there is any colored, box, that's basically a favorable fixture for each team in different game weeks. And if there is white, in that case, white boxes, that means that fixture is slightly tougher. So it's kind of like Lego Monument. It's kind of hop on and hop off matrix. So here, if you see, right, I kind of put kind of a dotted line at different period. So after game week 4, if you see, right, as we discussed before as well, that Newcastle kind of had a difficult fixture run in the first 4 game weeks. At least they're like facing like Man City and Liverpool and Brighton away as well. But after game week 4, they actually had very good run of fixture, like Brentford, then Sheffield, Burnley, whatnot. It's a very good run. So that's where if you don't have Newcastle at the very beginning, but if you see that they start firing, then definitely you want them, and the fixture is starting good. So that could be a very good wildcard territory. And at the same time, in the game week 4, you might be able to see how Liverpool shape up, right? And Liverpool fixture is not bad after 5, and actually even after 9, it's a long, good run. At the same time, we'll be able to see like Spurs and Chelsea that we are talking about. So game week 4, okay, game week 5 could be a very good place if if you think that whatever team you had, it's not firing and something to shape up for your team. So, and that's after first international break as well. So that's why I think people might be injured. You never know. Lots of unexpected events happen, right? The next one is after game week 8. So again, that's second international break, and basically before game week 9. So it could be 8 or 9, because the fixture swing here, like whichever team is having good fixture from game week 9, some of the team also have good fixture in game week 8 as well. So one of them is basically Liverpool. If you see, right, I mentioned that from game week 9, Everton, Nottingham Forest, Luton, and then Brentford, and then again Fulham, Sheffield United. So very good run. So if you missed already, for example, like say Trent or Nunes or Salah, or say even if you have one or two, but you didn't have the correct or asset that you wanted, so that could be a very popular window. At least I feel that to have a wildcard territory, because that's when also Man City's fixture kind of becomes a little tricky. Nobody's gonna sell Salah, but again, you never know, right? What I mean, we'll see how it happens, or what it looks like at that time. But again, if you see Spurs fixture look good from game week 9 as well. Again, if you remove your Brighton again from game week 9, I mean Man City is there, but Fulham, Everton. So again, if you see the start again from game week 9, I think there is a good fixture swing there, and we'll get more data to analyze your team as well, right? Another territory is game week 13, and again that's third international break. And as you see, Man City is facing like Liverpool, Tottenham, Aston Villa, so that could be another territory where people might do wildcard, right? And then game week 16 is another one, and I like game week 16 a little bit better, and I actually like game week 9 and 16 both, because in game week 16 it's kind of at the very close to the game week 19, where you have the deadline for for using wildcard 1, and you can kind of dead end your team before game week 16. Say if you sell Haaland because of the tough fixture, right, you can again get them if you do wildcard in game week 16. So and game week 19 is basically the last game week for wild. So I think, yeah, those are the like 4 to 5 6 window I felt could be very popular, especially in 9. I feel 9 and 16 could be very popular. But again, you don't have to have plan in that way, because basically you react based on the situation, right? Based on like how the team look like, players look like, and how you, I mean, if you need to team do your surgery to your team, just you can play wildcard as needed, right? You don't have to follow this. But that's my take on this.
Yeah, no, good stuff. Very good stuff. If you have not already seen it, Wrangler also put a tweet out in Twitter. So go look for it. There is more explanation, more detailed explanation on what the wildcard windows are. And as you said, I think I like those two windows more than the others. Game week 16, or even like post game week 18, where we can potentially dead end the Man City assets and get them back in the game week 19 wildcard, right? Which is the deadline for using the first wildcard. So I don't even mind game week 18 if we can hold on to that, hold on to it for that long. One thing is that maybe, as you were saying, specifically Liverpool's fixtures are very, very good starting game week 9, and if we see any kind of form from them up to game week 8, uh, if you don't start with the likes of Salah and Trent, right? That might force our hands to play the wild card in that time frame, in that game week 9 time frame. So that's something to keep in mind as well, when you decide whether you want to start with Liverpool or not. One of the things, of course, there are many other things, but that's something, because they are expensive assets, so you just cannot break your team to get in them when they have the good run, very like fantastic run, that like Everton, Nottingham, and Luton. You absolutely have to want to have the best Liverpool assets that you can afford, right? So that's something that to keep in mind. If you want to hold out longer, maybe you start with at least one of them. But yeah, if you are set on game week 9 wildcard, I think it's makes the case even better to not start with either Salah or Trent, or at least not one of them. So yeah, that's my take, but I agree with you, Wrangler. Game week 9 and game week 16, or 16 slash 18, 19 kind of looks better than the other windows for fixture swings and so on. Anything to add, ZD, on this? And of course, it's still too early to talk about wildcards, but overall thoughts, anything?
Yeah, I think Wrangler covered it very well. Especially like the way our it depends on our team structure, right?
Hmm.
Especially Salah and Trent. Like if you don't start with them, or if you start with them, like if you need to change the structure, I think
Hmm.
after the first international break it's a good one. But obviously game week 9 is the more interesting one because of the Liverpool boys.
Yeah.
And for me personally, this time I'll try to, I mean, this is not, it obviously depends on the game, but
Hmm.
obviously if it is a normal season, then probably I'll try to push my world at later phase, like in game week 16
As
probably.
late as possible, essentially.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I
All
would
right.
actually add three more teams here. I mean, definitely, like, this time we'll not have one more extra wild card, right? So definitely we want as late as possible. But for game week 9, actually, there are three other teams I'd like to highlight. One is Aston Villa. If you see Aston Villa, they're playing West Ham, Luton, Nottingham Forest, Fulham. So you might want their asset in that zone, because they are
Hmm.
again very good fixture, even in game week 8 as well. Another team is Spurs, because by that time we'll be able to know how how Son, how Madison, how Poro, how Kane, if he stays, look like. And again, they're playing Fulham, Crystal Palace, Wolves, and Chelsea again, and they're also playing Luton in game week 8. So that's why 8 and 9 is kind of, as I mentioned, could be one of
Yep.
them. And another team is West Ham, as we mentioned, right? That Bowen, or I don't know who is gonna be there, like,
Number
players.
9. Yeah.
But again, they're playing Everton, Brentford, Nottingham Forest, Burnley, and Crystal Palace. So game week 9 actually, like, have
Biggest
enough
fixture
players.
swing overall, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they player like Watkins, or even, like, for Aston Villa's other players, we might need them, right?
Hmm.
And I think Spurs definitely will have. I mean, I expect them to do good, right, this season with their
Yep.
signs. And for Crystal Palace, like players like Eze or someone, their fixture look good also after 9.
Hmm.
So that's why again 9 and 16 are my preferable. But I just wanted to highlight Aston Villa, Spurs, and West Ham's fixture as well from game week 9 on.
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely see mass wildcarding after that second international break before game week 9. That will most likely be the template move for most of the managers. All right, I think we covered everything for today, and I'll repeat that we'll come back with more team-specific videos with some of the experts from those teams. So you'll know soon who they are in the next couple of weeks. And then before game week 1, was of course we'll have an overall review of the preseason, how everything shaped up, how we want to, how our drafts are looking like by then as well, and in general discussion on some of the burning questions that the community has, or we do, right? So that'll be basically our last video before last preseason video essentially. So we'll get there, but again, it was nice talking to you, Wrangler and ZD, after a long pause. Nice, great talking FPL again, like the thing that we love, and hopefully we'll be able to continue this season if everything goes all right. So thanks again for joining. Thanks again all our friends who joined the pod, for all your comments and your being here. That's our strength, and that's the only reason that we want to keep moving forward. So thanks again. Thanks everyone. Thanks Wrangler. Thanks ZD for joining.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good one, everyone. Bye bye.